Hi, everyone. Welcome. It is Monday night, Generational Change. I am Jen. There is currently no Peter, but he will be here shortly. Peter is actually traveling and is getting into a hotel, and he'll be joining us shortly. But we don't want to keep our guest waiting. If you are new here, welcome. We are normally on at 9. We are going a little early tonight, but that's okay. Sometimes it happens. So if you're new, please subscribe. If you're not new, please hit the like button. Everybody should hit the like button. So there's a lot of things to talk about. And I'm sure people who are regulars are probably wondering, what would I think to talk about by myself without Peter here? And I'm not entirely sure. I'm looking at what he has queued down there. But let's go ahead and bring in Butch, because hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Jen?
Good. So I didn't want to waste time with the big introduction, but for people who do not know who Butch Ware is, he was the recent candidate for vice president for the Green Party, running with Dr. Jill Stein. And you're currently now running for governor in California, correct?
Yeah, made the announcement about filing the official paperwork actually within the next couple of days. I just got off the phone with our campaign manager, Jason Call, who was our campaign manager for the Steinware campaign. He agreed to serve as the campaign manager formally. So really excited, about giving the state of California like a real option as opposed to this corporate duopoly.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I was really excited to hear it. And then especially now where there's these rumblings of, Kamala should run for that. Yes, yes. Please let Kamala run. It's so weird to me because I feel like the people in charge, it's not that they can't read the room. They just don't care. But everybody else that's sort of like sycophantic to that, they really cannot read a room.
Yeah, I mean, where would I start? What a dramatic strategic mistake that would be, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't serve part-time as a Democratic campaign strategist. They can do whatever the hell they want. It would be difficult, to choose a candidate that would more dramatically expose their fundamental weaknesses as a party. And it would allow, someone standing in my position, trying to represent, a diverse third party, movement. As you described it, in promotional materials leading up to this talk, is a populist movement, which I think is the right way to describe it. it would just expose the flank of the Democrats so badly. I mean, on so many different issues, right? So who, aside from Joe Biden himself, has more blood on their hands with respect to not just Gaza, right, but to American foreign policy over the last, 4 years? The nuclear warmongering in Ukraine, all of that. Like, so who's more exposed that they could possibly run? No one, right? No one, unless Biden, unless they roll his, crypt keeping self out there to run for, for governor. California somehow, despite his long-term Delaware residency, right? Nobody else would more expose them on, the carceral state, and the way that the Democratic Party, which is supposed to be, which represents itself as a party that is for Black people, right? We all remember Joe Biden saying, you're not Black if you don't vote for Joe Biden.
Of course not. Of course not.
Apparently, I turned in on my Black card on that day because I never vote for Joe.
Well, I'm sitting here thinking in California, I would love her to run, because in a 2-person jungle primary, you against her, it would be glorious. Like, I think it would be really glorious. Like, that would be the real, I mean, the fact that Trump, he did very well in California. Very unseemingly well in California.
Yeah, I mean, so I live in Santa Barbara, and there's no shortage of Trump voters in a place in Santa Barbara, Montecito next door. As I said, at numerous points of the campaign, I think that there are lots of arguments that a third-party candidate can make that will be attractive, not just to the Bernie Trump voters, right? Or those who were, maybe Obama, Bernie, Trump voters, but to Trump voters. I think, like, if I had to really talk about it, I think that there were, part of the reason why the Dems lost is that there were 15 million people, that they might have normally expected to vote for them, that could not hold their nose and vote for this incompetent genocider, vapid, empty, warmongering pantsuit, Hillary Brown, basically she's just, the brown version of Hillary. They wouldn't hold their nose and do that. But I would actually also argue that there are probably a similar number of people, maybe 15 million, that did hold their nose and vote for Trump, despite the racism, despite the obviously problematic portions of Trump, just because they don't see a difference between blue criminals and red criminals. And all other things being equal, they'd probably rather have lower taxes. So they held their nose and voted for Trump. But I think that if you gave them an actual populist alternative that didn't require complicity with white supremacy, I think a lot of people would take that off ramp personally. Absolutely. And I think that in the state of California, there's an opportunity to engage what had been the progressive component of the Democratic base, to draw in a lot of those Bernie Trump voters and some of those Trump voters, and then especially to engage constituencies that have really never seen themselves as having an option that represents them in this, in this duopoly. So we're going to go at it, and I think that it would dramatize the contradictions, right? To have Kamala and I going toe to toe. I mean, first of all, that is a debate she don't want no part of.
I don't think the problem is, I don't think she could really ever do a debate. She can go in with pre-planned, pre-known, pre-arranged questions, know what she's going to say. And even then, she's incredibly weak. Like I, as somebody, and I did litigation. That's what I did. And I, by no means am some like great litigator, but from the very beginning of watching her, even when she was running in the primary back in 20, I could not understand how she was.
You mean back when she didn't get no delegates?
Exactly. Yeah. I can't fathom. How is she a litigator? She can't have a conversation that isn't like on a script. How can you litigate like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's the mediocrity, and I've talked about this before, that privilege breeds mediocrity. It eventually leads to a race to the bottom, and that's not just racial privilege, or class privilege. It's also political privilege. The Dems and Republicans haven't had to compete against like credible candidates in a long time, because they have these big machine structures that support, whatever the corporate wing of the Democratic Party, is willing to endorse. So she's very mediocre through and through.
Yeah, I agree. Hi, Peter. Welcome.
Good to see you, Butch. Jen.
Good to see you, Peter.
And Merry Christmas. Certainly, we're going to talk about, I'm sure Jen has already addressed it. I've been traveling all day. But the issue at hand here, I think, is the fact that the Democratic Party hasn't learned, not only has it not learned anything from the election, in fact, it's doubling down on, no, we must go more moderate, aka we must get more of that corporate money, because that's all I care about at this point. The idea that you could outspend your presidential opponent who had everything working against him by triple and lose pretty convincingly. I don't recall, Jen, maybe you could, or Butch, even you as well. I don't recall the situation where, I mean, you have to really go back to colonial times with somebody like John Quincy Adams or James.
Oh, you're getting on your thing where you want.
Come on.
He always wants to know who my favorite president is, and I.
No, that's not what I'm talking about at all.
Right. They're all like picking a venereal disease. All right, go on.
I'm talking about people that went into the executive mansion and then managed to find their way back into some type of an executive position, whether in, the Congress or as a governor. I think it's clear that Kamala still wants in on the club. There's a reason why she had a bunch of, toady minions go out in the media and suggest, oh, we should put her on the Supreme Court, get Sotomayor to step down. And that didn't work. And so now she basically thinks that she's going to be gift wrapped the gubernatorial position of California. And I think in a way that could end up becoming a tremendous benefit to you, because I think people are not only finished with the two-party duopoly, this just further will compound the circumstance because she'll clear the field. There will not be any real primary in the Democratic Party, but there is a progressive movement in the state of California. So how do you see that unfolding if Kamala ultimately does decide to run for governor?
I mean, I think you laid it out. I think that if you looked at the late September debate, I was still on the presidential campaign at that time, so I didn't pay close attention. But there, four of the Democratic early Democratic entrants for the 26th California gubernatorial took the stage together. None of them would even throw baby punches at Gavin Newsom, this. So these are mediocre candidates. Without, kind of significant communicating skills, without any kind of clear vision. So I do think that if Kamala were to enter, just because of what do they call it? The Q factor, right? The Q rating, the name recognition, she would blow the rest of the Dems likely out of the water, and turn it into a two-person conversation. I like my odds if you let me anywhere near a debate stage with Kamala Harris. I said this on the presidential campaign. I think the reason why they didn't want Jill on a presidential debate stage, the reason why they didn't want me up there with J.D. Vance and Tim Walz, is that the American people aren't fools. The American people have been fooled. The way that corporate media controls the conversation, controls exposure, and keeps us from figuring in substantive ways in the political conversation. I think that if you pierce that and you stand intelligence and integrity next to corruption, incompetence, and essentially like vapid emptiness. What is Kamala Harris?
Hillary, right? And Hillary in a Kamala suit.
So all of that is just to say, I think that, and this is the other part of it, and this I think is also perhaps underrated, especially for those of us that often depict ourselves as being on the left. I actually don't think that most of the things that we ran on as the Green Party ticket and the things that we would be running on for the California gubernatorial are leftist issues. We're learning in the response to the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO that Medicare for all is like the easiest political win possible. And neither of these corporate parties will let it happen because lobbyists, from that industry run them. So all of the stuff that we've been running on, affordable housing, Medicare for all, these are 70, 30, 80, 20 issues with the American people. And in a state that leans left, like the state of California, they're even maybe 80, 20, 90, 10 issues. So I think that stacking up an actual progressive populist agenda against a Democratic Party that is now well to the right of Ronald Reagan, right? Let's be clear about that.
Absolutely.
They are now, like, you literally cannot even see Reagan anymore on your left from where the Dems are standing now. I think that it'll highlight that contradiction.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't even like using the term left, because then you just, like, the people who are really with you, I just say populist. It's really because these are universal things, and we know they're universal things. And these parties seek to create this tribalism to divide when we know that it's completely not. I mean, we know most people support single payer healthcare. It's just a matter of how you twist the question to get the answer that you want for the poll that you're trying to, do. But we know that. And I think that the policies that the Green Party policies, and I can't speak to every little intricate one, but the major issues, they're not left. They're actually in any other part of the civilized world. They're just central normal policies. That's what's so crazy about it to me, is that when we say left, people really do not understand what they're talking about. They have no idea what that even means.
Yeah. And I mean, in order to make things clearer, right? Both analytically and politically, I just talk about liberals and conservatives, right? Because then it doesn't get into a kind of fake left-right divide that doesn't do justice to kind of, what the left actually is supposed to be. Because what and then when I have things framed as liberals and conservatives, then I can lean on Malcolm. Right. And what Malcolm said about liberals and conservatives, right?
Be worried about the liberal.
He said,
and I know,
he said the white liberal is the most dangerous thing in the Western Hemisphere. That's what he said. He said that it bares its teeth at you. You think that it's smiling, but you're on the menu. The white conservative forms its face into a vicious snarl. You know exactly what its intent it is the wolf. Well, it used to be, when Malcolm was saying this in 1964, he said this. He was talking specifically about the Black community essentially being prey for both of these predatory parties, a party of liberals and a party of conservatives. What we have seen is that all of the oppressive strategies that were used to keep the Black community down in the 1960s have now been extended to the entirety of the American population outside of the 1%. So what was a problem, identified for the Black community, now you can just see it, dramatically the case for all poor people, all working class people, all people of color. We are essentially prey for these two predatory duopoly parties, and the people are ready for an alternative. The polling indicates that time and time again. So I won't go on too long.
Yeah, no, I mean, I see it as we're just all prey to capital. And it's just those two parties, they're really, we know that this is silly, right? Like, this is a political theater facade, that's not real. I mean, at the end of the day, I find it amusing when people criticize China because, it's one party. Oh, yes, because the selection here is just so diverse. We have so many different trains of thought in our legislative,
Julius, I think it was Julius Nyerere, great East African socialist politician. He said, of course, America is a one-party state, but with characteristic American extravagance, there are two of them. Right? And this is, it's like, mwah, chef's kiss for that one, because that's literally exactly it. When these two parties conspire to make sure that no third party can appear on a debate stage, when these two parties have overlapping patronage networks that include AIPAC and the top 6 weapons manufacturers, when 98% of their fiscal networks fundamentally overlap, in what real sense do you actually have a two-party competitive system. You have one party with competing factions inside of it. And I liked what Chris Hedges had to say about this. It kind of gave me some analytical clarity. He talked about this was an election wherein the oligarchs overpowered the corporatists amongst the 1%. There's this kind of distinction between the chaotic control of a direct takeover by oligarchic authorities and the more kind of investment-driven, supporters of the Democrats. But the truth is, for the rest of us, it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Yeah, and I think the more that this goes on, the more people are just kind of exposed to the reality of the system. And I think the thing that makes the Democrats all the more hysterical, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, at this point, it's such a joke. They're not even attempting to shift course in any way, shape, or form. And because they're not attempting to shift course, it's almost like they would always say that the difference between the Democrats and Republicans is that they're both on their way to the same destination. But with the Republicans, it's more of a nosedive. With the Democrats, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. At this point, I feel like the Democrats are like, nah, you know what? We'll make it a nosedive too. We're not slowing down at this point. The audacity of somebody like Kamala to think, I mean, somebody who clearly gets stage fright in such a comprehensive way that she doesn't know how to articulate any salient points at all. It's actually cringe in a way where I want to turn away. And now,
can we talk about the fact that she often also looks like she's like at least buzzed? I mean, I understand that this is, maybe not, governor level, conversation, but how many video clips do we need to see of her where she's just, anyway. Maybe it's the stage fright. I don't know.
Honestly, though, Butch, the only people who seem to care about that are people that live in comfortable neighborhoods in Southern and Northern California. This is not something that truly matters. In fact, it's one of the more endearing qualities of Trump, because he's so crass, that it's actually something that I think the average person identifies with. Oh, he's being himself. He's not actually trying to put on a facade. And I think one of the more detrimental aspects of politics is not being honest. One of the things that the Democrats made wholeheartedly clear during the 2000s, especially during the Obama years, was what a lush John Boehner was. Now it's considered sacrilege to even address the fact that Pelosi is the exact same way, or the fact that Kamala is essentially the exact same way. Although I don't think Kamala strikes me as the type of person who gets up in the morning to hit the bottle. I think she probably hits the bottle because it's what calms her nerves. I think she has exceptional stage fright, and I thought that was one of the more, I mean, listen, you could get into the nuances and the issues with her as a politician and the policy she supported, but I'm just looking at this from as objective a position as I could possibly look at.
As a political performer, yeah.
So if she's going to run the state of California, it would behoove her to not take you for granted, because I think that if she does run, and my gut's telling me she's going to do it,
yeah,
I do believe that what will ultimately be the case is that you will have that lane. But I think what people need to really understand about the prospect of you running for governor, maybe more than anything else, is your ability to raise money. One of the hardest parts about being outside of the two-party system is this conviction from the average, even independent supporter to say, well, is it really worth giving $50? Is it worth giving $100? I think if it is a cleared path in many ways, I mean, the GOP is going to run somebody, but there's going to be no economic left populist vitriol that is going to want to be thrown at the system in California. And right now it's very vulnerable. As we saw, Trump was within, I guess, 17, 18 points, which, to the average person, like, oh, that's not a big deal. In California, it's a big deal.
California's a big deal.
So they are going to run somebody on the GOP side. But if you get that left populist support, you could surprise a lot of people. I think people would really be underestimating you if you were to get that support, especially if Kamala decides to go for it.
So there's a couple of things that need to happen in order for us to be successful in that endeavor. You already alluded to one of them, which is fundraising. I think it's going to take 30 million to be competitive in the California gubernatorial race, and I think that we're going to have to to significantly upscale what the Green Party has been used to from a fundraising standpoint. And that's not me telling, stories out of school or talking behind anybody's back. I went to the Green Party National Steering Committee and said, y'all need to get serious about fundraising. I said that to the California Green Party, and led them through, like the list of structural reforms that are going to be needed for us to be more competitive. And then it's not just about providing the diagnostic. Now I'm running to try to walk that walk. I'll just give a simple example, right? The 10 months before I joined the presidential campaign with Dr. Stein, they had raised 1.1 million over 10 months. And we raised that amount in the 2 months that I was on the campaign. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that for 2 decades, I've been doing fundraising inside the Muslim community. And we have like substantial fundraising networks that really have never been tapped, right? This was not for a political event, but I had previously scheduled an event. I think it was October 26th, if I'm not mistaken. It was close to the end of the campaign. It was for one of the mosques that I do a lot of community work with, Isla in LA, on Crenshaw and Slauson. Okay, one of my favorite, mosques. I do events there frequently. Imam Jihad Safir, I'll shout him out here. I was the keynote speaker for that event. It's not a political event. It's a fundraiser for that mosque. We raised $1 million that night. $1 million that night. I don't think that the Democrats are ready or prepared for me being at the top of a ticket in the state of California when we have a Muslim community. And by the way, nationwide in the exit polling, 53% of Muslims nationwide voted for Dr. Jill and myself, only 20% for Harris, 20% for Trump. And I think people have not reflected on what this means. This is the most significant single demographic shift in a religious or ethnic group since Black folks turned Democrat behind FDR. Going from voting 65% for Democrats over a 60-year period, that's what the Muslim community had done, to in a single electoral cycle, completely abandoning the Democratic Party and throwing their weight behind Green. And I've said a number of times that if the rest of the national electorate had the same moral compass that the Muslim community demonstrated with their political choices, then we would have a very different electoral circumstance, because we won the Muslim community outright. And we will absolutely do that again in the state of California. And there is significant fundraising base in the Muslim community in the Bay Area, in San Diego, in Orange County, in Los Angeles. And when you combine that with the fact that we have been doing work literally right down to working with street organizations, with my brother Khalid Alexander, Pillars of the Community in San Diego, we are going to put together a coalition that comes from the grassroots, but is also financed properly. And that's the two pieces.
I think you need to tap into the Muslim community nationally, fundraising wise, because we learned, I never saw anything like it in my life. And I'm Jewish. I mean, I've seen negotiating, I've seen it all. And I never saw anything like these Muslims at the fundraising. It's unbelievable. And there's no like discreet, like it's not written down. It's like, do I see $10,000? Sure, I'll give you $10,000. And it was just unbelievable. And then you've got the guys on the phone talking to people that aren't there who are bidding on, and it was I never saw anything.
No, look, we don't play around. Like these are disciplined, organized fundraising networks nationwide. I mean, when we did events in Texas, it was the same. When we did events in Pennsylvania, it was the same. Florida, and those are absolutely networks that we can draw into support for the California gubernatorial, because people also understand that the more strength that we demonstrate in the state of California in 2026, then the more strength that we have the opportunity to demonstrate in the national presidential elections in 2028.
Yeah. Well, we saw you came here, but you didn't come here. You came Central Florida. You did. I know. You're such a waste down here. I know. It's hard. I don't even know how to entice people. It's pathetic. But we do have a really good Muslim fundraising base down here in the Tri-County. That is very impressive. And I'd be happy to connect you with some people down here.
We can have that conversation. But I'll tell you what the closing pitch was time and time again, is that we have shown for 2 decades that we can raise funds for, for religious causes, for big, beautiful, mosques. And what has it gotten us? They kill us with impunity and expect us to vote for them.
Yeah.
And when that bar drops in the fundraiser, the place goes quiet and people get out their QR codes because they understand that it is now time for organizing for political power. And I said this, and it's important to stress this. The Muslim American community is being presented with exactly the same dilemma and tragic opportunity that the American Jewish community was presented with after World War II, which is, how are you going to organize politically in the aftermath of a genocide? And what I've said time and time again is the last thing that we need is a Muslim AIPAC. What we need is for Muslims to provide this discipline, organizational base, and fundraising base to help provide leadership for an anti-imperialist coalition that is about meeting people's basic needs. And that is something that concords with the deepest of our values, not just as Muslims, as human beings. And that's the real fundamental issue, is we are in a space now where these two corporate parties are always choosing profit over the people, over the planet, and over the peace. And we are going to give them, we're going to give the people a serious alternative. But it means that we're going to have to raise money and we're going to have to build that ground game.
One of the things that obviously is, we will transition to Luigi Mangione. One of the things that was
Luigi!
Which was one of the big things in the state of California, was trying to push for CalCare. Now, obviously, that has been kneecapped 9 ways to Sunday. And of course, Governor Newsom had a heavy hand in that. I would imagine, with everything that's going on right now, that being able to address as a candidate for governor, that you will make it your mission to pass single-payer health care, I would think is going to go over very well. With
literally, I mean, obviously, single-payer health care is long overdue. You can do it in the state of California. In that aforementioned gubernatorial conversation, I won't even call it a debate, where the 4 Democratic candidates, they all essentially hemmed and hawed and talked about how they were generally in support, but not really making any kind of commitments. You're damn right we're going to get single payer if you vote me in as governor of California. And there's no question that we're going to run on the basis of it, because it's necessary and it's required. And it's one of the fundamental, I mean, don't get me started on Obama, but it's one of the huge disappointments, right, that Obama sold us out on. It wasn't just the foreign policy. It wasn't just the bombing Yemeni kids. It was also selling out on single payer, option, because people forget that essentially making this compromise with the corrupt insurance industry and the way that it now articulates with Obamacare is what has allowed them to reap these massive profits over the past, decade or so. And so, yeah, and watching the public response, to seeing a CEO get de-brained in downtown Manhattan, you understand just how completely fed up the American people are with this healthcare system that we have. I mean, 30 cents on every single healthcare dollar goes to a middleman rent-taking class that doesn't do anything. It's silly when we call them healthcare companies, because they do not provide healthcare. They are financial services industries is what they are, because they don't make care cheaper. They don't make care better. They don't make care faster. Their job is to take a cut off the top. And if we want to then go back to what I was saying earlier about how the Democrats are now so far to the right of Reagan, it was Reagan that gave us this nonsense. And now the Dems have literally perfected it, right? Privatize everything. So that now, instead of just having the state provide the service, you instead have a profit-taking private corporation insinuate itself between the service and the people, diminishing the quality of the good that is delivered so that they can draw a profit from it. And it's not just healthcare, right? Healthcare has been dramatized by the Luigi Mangione, assassination of Brian Thompson, but this is now the norm in the way that corporations engage. We got 401ks now instead of bonds. We've got all of these places where private corporations are taking a cut off of the top of things that are obviously public goods, and this should never be privatized. Don't even start about talking about the prison industrial complex.
Big shout out to independent journalist Ken Klippenstein. He's been doing some really amazing work as of late. And of course, this little doozy, which should not surprise either of you, shouldn't surprise anybody in the audience, and frankly, it shouldn't surprise anybody in this country at this point. Luigi Mangione's judge is married to a former healthcare executive because of course he is.
Of course he is.
Pre-trial judge in case involving murder of United Health CEO Brian Thompson owns millions in stock, including pharma and healthcare. I mean, honestly, how do you get a fair trial, Jen? I would not recuse himself from the bench.
You would think after this he might have to. I mean, we have no care anywhere, either domestically or internationally, for rule of law. None. So things that are supposed to be, he'd have to recuse himself. You can't have a financial interest in that. But
and it's actually she. And my apologies.
She's married to the guy. Yeah.
Oh, I saw a picture of a man. I'm sorry, she.
Well, yes. Well, Brett Parker is a former executive of Pfizer, because of course he is. Magistrate Judge Catherine H. Parker, who was overseeing pretrial hearings for Luigi Mangione, is married to a former Pfizer executive and holds hundreds of thousands of dollars in stock. And again, more than anything else, I think it's fair to say that the idea that we publicly trade on people's life and death is, I mean, come on, it's beyond inhumane. It's the end of empire. That's where we're at. And that's why this is why I think you're a very dangerous candidate and why you have to watch your back.
Clearly.
You can convey this message very eloquently that, with all due respect, a fairly affluent liberal from the Northeast, not referencing anybody, is not able to articulate in a way that will resonate with the masses.
Come on, man. Fairly affluent progressive, and then I'll let it.
Yeah, stop. I just think it just has to do with perception.
Yeah.
Whether correct or not, that's just unfortunately how it goes, is the perception. And I've always said, Greens have a branding problem. It's not a policy problem; it's a branding problem.
It's more than that. I mean, if you don't mind me interrupting, so it is more than just the branding issue, and that's part of what I've said to different layers of the Green Party, state of California, coordinated campaign committee, national steering committee, is that we're the party that has the best platform for working people, but we're not a working people's party, right? As currently constituted, we're the party that has the best platform for Black liberation. Been running on reparations since 2012, but we're not a Black people's party. We have the best policies with regards to immigration, best policies for the Latin community more broadly, whatever immigration status, but we're not a Latin party at this point in time in terms of our constituencies. And what that means is that we have it is a branding problem,
it's marketing. I feel like it's marketing.
But it's an organizing problem. Yeah. So I'll name tag a group that I have a lot of love for. One Hood Media out of Pittsburgh, does a lot of great social media work, and also organizing work. And they were like, Dr. Ware, we love your platform, love the fact that you're bringing reparations in the conversation, Black liberation. Got to be honest with you, we ain't seen the Green Party around here, like in the hood in Pittsburgh. And that is a real criticism. It's a real critique. And if we don't take it seriously and build within communities, and that's also part of the rationale for running for governor, is that I have relationships in all of those urban communities that can now then be leveraged in order to build that kind of political organization. We have to make it into a working people's party. We have to make it into a party where Black folk feel at home. And I said this I told this to Jason. Jason is managing the campaign and also managed the Stein Ware campaign. I said, listen, if you bring me on this ticket, you have to know that this is about to become the red, black, and green party, that there is no way that we are, I'm going to be, running on anything less than Black liberation as a fundamental part of the platform and the way that we present. So yeah, you're right, Pete. They should be afraid because this is not being delivered in with.
Can I just say the fact that you said it has to be the red, black, and green party? Jen, please flash the earrings. I think
I've got my. Well, these are my watermelon. I alternate, but these are watermelon. And I don't know if you know, but Jason calls a friend. He and I have known each other since 2019 when we were running for brand new Congress. So I've known him a really long time, and I appreciate him in the fight for sure.
Yeah, definitely. He's a soldier. No two ways about it.
Yeah. And it also goes to show you that when we were in that room and there was probably about 20 candidates in there, and all due respect, again, I'm very black and white. Like I don't pull any punches. And I said to Jen, as soon as we went in there, I said, okay, you could cut half these people out of the room already.
It was true.
And then it's a question of who actually in here is legit and is for real. And the one candidate who truly stood above the rest was Cori Bush. And I knew at the time that there was something about her, that she had a fighting spirit and that she truly cares about the least of these. But, she went in there and she decided to play politics too. And it is unfortunate, but this is what ends up happening. And you have to build a coalition. The coalition building is everything. And part of the reason why, as much as I believe that the best representative in the GOP by far is Thomas Massie, you could also make the argument that the best representative in the Democratic Party is Rashida, because she has a real coalition. She is actually willing to stand on principle. Listen, Ilhan does it too, but Rashida truly said to Biden, with all due respect, go fuck yourself. And that is something that is actually acceptable on the Republican side. In the Democratic Party, it is a non-starter. You better fall in line. And if you don't fall in line, we will come at you with everything.
They're going to come at you with all of the AIPAC money that they can throw, and they will break you down the way that they broke down Jamal Bowman, the way that they broke down Cori Bush. I mean, when Ilhan Omar, shortly before the election, posted a picture of her with a dozen Somali imams that none of my people in Minneapolis knew who they were, and they were supposedly endorsing, Kamala for president. That really, pathetic.
No, I do. I find I met Ilhan a couple times in the past year, and it's very upsetting. It's very upsetting because she is, it's very.
Thought well of her, and then you see that kind of thing happen. Rashida, absolutely, soldier. But let's just ask the question though, seriously. If we can build the kind of Green Party organization I'm talking about building, Rashida Tlaib running as a Green Party candidate could be governor of the state of Michigan. Why sit there and continue to be horsewhipped by the Democrats? They won't even let you put Palestinians on stage. As soon as we give people a viable alternative outside of the duopoly, you're going to see people like Rashida Tlaib and the younger generation that are built like her. And again, I said this, I made two predictions during the campaign. I never said we were going to win. I never said we were going to get 5%. I made exactly two predictions during the campaign. One of them has already come true. We'll see if the second one does. The first one I said aloud, I think August 23rd or 24th. I've been on the campaign for a week. And I said that the Dems have no path to victory. They cannot win this election. And people thought that I was crazy, but I had looked at the polling data in the Muslim community, and it was clear that they had lost all of the swing states already and were never going to get the Muslim vote back. So they had no path to victory. So I said it. And so I've already seen that one come true. The second one is I said that the Dems are never going to recover from the beating that they take this November. They are going the way of the Whigs.
I think so too. I hope so. And I do think that as well. And here's hoping.
There's
Like
also there's also a huge problem that the Democrats have right now, and this is just related to the fact that it's a completely corporate captured party, and they think that the solution is to put AOC front and center because she's popular. Now, popularity matters only to a certain degree. As Jen has pointed out time and again, she is completely capped in her congressional position, which is perfectly fine. I mean, let's face it, we have 30 literally generational, no pun intended, representatives all throughout this country. You have one member of the GOP in Texas right now who literally doesn't even know where she is. So, at some point you realize it's kind of a nursing home type situation. But even when you think about the sort of independent media circuit and whether or not they're going to speak truth to power in a way that needs to be spoken, the Democratic Party in many ways sealed its fate when it comes to Israel-Palestine. And so AOC goes on a show. Listen, I'm not going to badmouth him. I don't think Sam Cedars a bad guy.
oh, leave Sam and Emma alone. Please.
I have no love whatsoever for Emma Vigeland. I have a very strong opinion about her, but I'll leave that aside. You cannot go on. I don't care how famous a person is. I don't care how big they are. If you are going to speak to them, you cannot pussyfoot around key issues that are going to define whether or not you are actually going to advance as a movement in any capacity. And so this is what happened the other day. I think 2 days ago when Alex decided to go on with, and of course, anytime she goes on any podcast, it is an extremely controlled environment.
Yeah. Just lastly, because I know you got to go, but part of this dynamic of the way that young people are getting their media now, it seems to me, is that what we've seen with Gaza and what's happening with Israel is akin, in my mind, to what happened with the Vietnam War when we saw for the first time reporters were actually involved in the war. And for people who had more skin in the game, insofar as like I could get drafted or my kids could get drafted, that really changed the politics in a way that I don't think the upper echelon or the old guard, as it were, of whatever was happening at that time in this country understood. And I feel like that same dynamic is happening now. If you're under the age of 40, what's gone on in Israel is in Palestine and Gaza in particular, obviously, and the West Bank for that matter, is very different from your perception if you're over the age of 40 because of where you get your media.
I have said this directly to Democratic leadership. I've communicated this to the White House, that this is our Vietnam. This is our, not just like in terms of the party, but this is just our country's Vietnam. And what I think a lot of people do not yet understand is they think this is, that some of these hemorrhages are maybe ideological. They think maybe it is like an ethnic thing. I don't think there is appreciation yet about how generationally radicalizing this moment is, and how shocked people are at how far just like the general inertia is willing to go, as if we're not seeing what's happening right before our very eyes. I mean, we are now at the point where,
all I can say is that she's not as bad a speaker as Kamala. That's
no, but it's close. It's close.
If I might,
please, the word salad. I can't.
AOC Pelosi.
Oh yeah.
Holder, as I said once before, of the land speed record for fastest betrayal of the people. I mean, this is a person who came in, standing for progressive, values, and then caped for Kamala as hard as she possibly could. Absolute and complete total sellout. And what does it get her? Right? Jerry Connolly still gets propped up with his, 73, 74, years. And it's perfect, right? Is that you sell out, you play along, and then you still get told to stand in line, by this corrupt, corporate organization. I mean, no credibility of any kind left for this complete and total fraud who now, stands with the corporate ring. Rhetorically, she'll occasionally still play to the progressives, bought and paid for.
Yeah. And can we say, though, like also like ideologically, academically, cerebrally, what does this have to do with Vietnam? Now, if you wanted to equate the Zio-Nazis to the Nazis and say that's our that. But what the hell does it have to, like, what it's sort of like just some talking point. That was a word salad of gargantuan proportions. I still don't know what she has said.
She doesn't know. Here's the thing about her, which I think is crystal clear. And you saw this with Kamala as well, especially when she was ever pressed. Anytime a person hesitates and cannot articulate their point saliently, it's because they're overthinking what they're going to say, because they're concerned they're going to piss off somebody.
No, it's because they're lying. When people can't speak in clear sentences, it's they're lying.
Both of these can be true. I mean, I think that a lot of times it's double speak, but then a lot of times it's also what Peter's describing. They know where the landmines are.
Where's the line?
They know if I say this donor is out. If I say this donor is out. And so literally, so you can see them kind of mentally trying to tiptoe between these different landmines where their donors sit. And and AOC Pelosi, like $15 million just in political donations just in the last year, for just her PAC. So she's got a lot on the line. She's got Met Galas to attend, and she needs to make sure that she stays on the right side of the money in the party. And it's an impossible dance to do. You cannot keep staying on the right side of the money in the party and still also pretending to stand with the people. You can't do it. There's no way of playing Twister like that. There's too much tape running. There's too much video. Everybody can run this quote against what you said previously and see that you sold out, so fast it made people's heads spin.
And I love that we call her AOC Pelosi. It's great. I mean, she really is. It's disappointing, but the truth is, she's just really not that bright. And I'm just like, I don't want to say it to be mean, but it's like, she's just really not that bright. Like, I've never heard her really say anything that was too insightful.
This is something that Jen and I both communicated on directly when we met with Ilhan the first time. And I said, this is the type of person. Bright. She is extremely bright. And she's also one of the most effective legislators in the entire Congress, whereas AOC is one of the worst. She is at the very bottom. She's like the bottom 10 out of 435.
Of effectively getting any legislation through.
Ilhan, at a time or two, was like number 4. Like, that to me says it all. And this is a woman who wears a freaking hijab. You want to talk about walking in the halls of Congress and literally having every Zio-Nazi with their daggers out for you every day, and yet you still manage to be that effective? The biggest problem with Alex is that she is very enamored with the life. It is very intoxicating. I guarantee you she's honestly, she's like a mafia boss in the sense that every restaurant, the top places in DC, the top places in Queens, the top places in New York City, come on in, table's ready for you. Let people know that you showed up here. And listen, I don't doubt that she cares. I think she does. I think her heart is a bleeding heart. I think that she wants to help people, but she wants to help people on her terms. That does not affect her career trajectory. If in any way it does, it's just not going to happen. And you know what? Especially in this moment, you are a colossal failure of the highest order for not recognizing or trusting your platform, because she's got a big one.
She's a tool. She's a tool.
Yes, at this point, she's a tool. And we're going to finish this clip out because even the bigger tool is the fact that Sam and Emma will not push back on her for not.
Or they won't get her back on their show.
Fuck it. Who cares?
Well,
Make a point.
I'm just saying, it's like that's how people get interviews, is they play games.
Me calling this a genocide, going to the House floor, delivering a speech saying that the administration is aiding and abetting this is so far beyond the fringe, so far beyond the pale. This is also part of what this dynamic was in this vote too. It came up like, let's just to call a spade. That was also an element in this fight. But I think that it is important that we lay these markers down again generationally, because people
I'm going to
see
copyright
what is
that.
happening.
She
What
wants
did
to
she say? What did she say?
She wants, and this person wants to be
cannot.
the ranking member of the oversight
I don't
committee.
understand what markers are we laying down generationally? I'm
About being aware of that Gaza is a genocide, but yet didn't she ultimately vote for the money? See, this is the thing for me.
Yeah, listen, you can't.
When you vote for the money, I don't care what you say. Like it doesn't matter.
I made a social media post to try to keep this simple for people, is that you can't oppose a genocide and support the genocider. That's not how it works.
No.
That's not possible. And this is crucial. You guys have talked about intelligence, but let's talk for a second about integrity. And I think that's really the issue, right? Is that it's a question of integrity. She's going to say what is going to keep her in the good graces of, who the donor class is. And when I speak to the Muslim community, when I speak to progressive communities in any audience that I'm speaking to, they know that it's me talking and that I'm going to stand on exactly what I say. And when I say, as the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, if you put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left, it would not get me off of what I'm on. It's a way of saying that I cannot be bought by anything that you have. There is nothing that you can offer me that is going to make me compromise my principles, the things that I stand for, or my personal integrity, period, full stop. And that is the fundamental problem that the Democrats have, is that they have all of these compromised people in their organization because they demand that you compromise your integrity, that you go along to get along. Rashida Tlaib is the rare exception. Yeah. Somebody like Nina Turner, the rare exception that they're able to survive this, constant corrupt onslaught of this corporate party, that either with the carrot for somebody like AOC, with the incentives, is kept in line, or with the stick for somebody like Jamal Bowman or Cori Bush is taken out of power. Very few are able to survive. And she is the best current example of the fact that there is no possibility of reforming Team Blue.
No.
Zero. Can't happen.
The one thing I will say in her defense, but this is something that, as Jen has often pointed out, when she ran against Wasserman Schultz, whenever we would encounter a true die-in-the-wool supporter of hers, it was often a very specific type of person. It was usually an older woman, specifically. And the response was always, well, Debbie did this for me. And Jen, what was always your response?
That's her job.
Well, this is the best thing. When somebody will say something like, well, I was having trouble with my VA benefits and her office helped me. Yes, she's paid handsomely for that. That's literally her job. I have never in my life seen people praise people to that extent for doing their job. Like, no one ever came into my office and was like celebrating me doing my job. Like, I don't recall that. So, yes, I find that absurd.
So, as you know, one of the better stories that's happening right now, and we've often said that the change we seek is going to come out from outside the two-party system. Electoral politics still matters, despite what people say. However, electoral politics is not what's going to solve our problem.
Agreed.
A national populist movement through labor is the only way we are going to fix this problem. And so, as I'm sure you're aware, 2 more Amazon warehouses are currently on strike. They are employing, Bezos is a total psychopath of the highest order, of course. How could you get to that level if you're not? But he has employed every dirty tactic in order to try to break the strike. Of course, they're doing it at the right time. They're doing it on the eve of Christmas. I have ordered items. I rarely get anything, if ever, from Amazon unless it's absolutely necessary. And of course, I have experienced the issue with getting things in the mail right now, but I also understand why they're doing this. Alex did show up at the picket line. Alex, that's your job.
So did Joe.
So did Joe.
Great. So he's the greatest labor president in my lifetime.
Yeah. Till we actually deal with the issue that doesn't exist, which is the PRO Act, which should have been the top priority of the Biden administration its first 100 days. Of course, it wasn't. This is where we are right now. So this is what's going on at the two warehouses in New York. I believe this, Colin. I think this is definitely from Status Quo, because who else would we be promoting but them?
We have drivers coming out and the striking workers giving them hell for basically breaking the line, breaking the strike. What they call scabs that are still working and crossing the picket line. And they have a whole lot of police out here. A whole lot of police out here to protect those drivers.
Just beat up a little cocaine there.
So how long you been at Amazon? And tell me about this momentum and energy out here.
Yeah, it's pretty great, man. It's a lot of support. I've been here for a year now, since October. And, you know, I was really liking the job, but at the same time, you know, the pay is what's really killing me right now. Like, if it could be a little higher, that would be great. Because, you know, when you hear about, like, UPS and they're doing their contract and they're doing their thing, you know, people working there for a while making six figures, that's great. And we just want a piece of that cake too, you know.
I'm gonna start off with the energy is great. As you can see, I lost my voice from yesterday being one of the main ones out here, but it's great. You know, I've been working at Amazon delivering smiles, as they would say, for over a year now. And a day-to-day life at Amazon is just basically you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears on the line to make sure that customers are happy, but you're not getting what you deserve.
It doesn't seem like the economy is great for the actual workers.
It's actually not. You know, it doesn't matter what people's idea is about this. The reality is the reality. You know, there's nights that me, myself, go to sleep at night crying literally because I didn't get the amount of Christmas gifts from my family that I expected that I'd be able to by this time of the season. And I'm still out here striking because of it. We're a few days away from Christmas, and we just have to fight for what we deserve.
Could you imagine that shit? It's just... And the only reason, again, this all comes back to why Mangione doing what he did was so substantial, and it's going to reverberate in ways that I don't think people truly understand yet, because it's exposing the entire rot within the system. I am working full-time for a company that is the third or fourth largest in the world, and I'm not able to put food on the table. I'm not able to provide enough for my family to buy them gifts for Christmas. These are the people who actually make the business possible. These are the ones who actually walk around with fucking diapers in the warehouses so that they meet literally insane deadlines when it comes to shipping and packaging. This guy's saying I don't have enough.
Let's talk about the fact that the CEO can blast himself into space while his employees pee in cups because their breaks are not long enough for them to urinate. So for the record, I do not have an Amazon account. I will not give that rotten mother a nickel, not a nickel. When people ask me how to get my academic books, I tell them order them from the press. Do not give Bezos a cut of anything. And let's just be clear about this. You saw those cops also along that line. I'm going to be a history professor just for a moment and remind us. Everybody likes to say that the institution of American policing comes out of slave patrols. True, but also incomplete. That's slave patrols are one of the cradles of American policing. The other two are policing Indian country, the westward expansion. And then the third, especially for northeastern cities, is literally corporations helped found the first municipal police departments in Philadelphia, in Boston, in Chicago, for one reason: strike breaking. Strike breaking. So when you saw those cops breaking up that Amazon strike, that is right on brand. That's what they're there for. The police exist to police stolen people, stolen land and stolen labor.
And not stolen people in the manner that we should be, okay? Like not kidnap people, not
No, I'm talking about they came into policing stolen Africans is what they came into being. No, they're not stopping human trafficking nowadays.
No, they're just there for the property.
They're just there to protect the property, and they're there, for the property owning class. And I want to say this really quick to just go back to something that you said earlier, Jen. It's really, really important that we understand where we are in late stage capitalism or end stage capitalism, that these people have monopolized essentially everything. And in order to continue to wring profits out after they already have all of the spaces on the monopoly board, they have to resort to increasingly drastic extractive measures. It's the reason why, despite the protests, they continue the warmongering, because the shareholders need to be fed. And as long as there's this necessity for continuous expansion and dividends for the shareholders, but there's nowhere left to squeeze it anymore except out of us, then that's why you start to see now they're literally just killing us with the stroke of a pen, for healthcare. And what's their response? How are they going to protect themselves? Increased police presence for all of it. That's the reason for all of it. Cities, it's the reason for the drones hovering over New Jersey. Is like they are telling you, we are about to bring Terminator style surveillance to this country if you continue to protest our extractive efforts.
Yeah, and that does, and again, every time they double down, it just makes me want to set more shit on fire. You know what I'm saying? Like it's not helping. And I've been to the Stop Cop City in Atlanta, one of the protest weekends there. And I know they're building those all over the place. And they are totally ready for like military urban warfare because they anticipate what is coming. And you know what? That's fine. And if they think that one healthcare CEO, they have no idea what's in store, is what I think. And the reality is they don't understand that what we view as violence is violence. Denying people healthcare is violence. Austerity is violence. If you're going to be violent against me, I will be violent against you. And that is how, they just don't understand that that's violence.
Right. I mean, structural violence is the predominant form of violence, just as the predominant form of theft is wage theft. Right. The part that's hidden in plain sight is the part that is the most dangerous and the most violent. And by the way, that's the reason why they had that absurd Hannibal Lecter style perp walk for Luigi Mangione. I mean, literally missing everything except, for the face mask, right? And the reason was to make sure that everyone sees that kind of visible presence is there to protect the propertied 1%. And the reason is that they are terrified. They're terrified. They're starting to see how close the people are to actually waking up to all of the extractive hooks that are in them. And here's the thing, the reason why they're building all those cop cities and the reason why they sent all of those pigs to college campuses to crack the heads of unarmed kids and to get them off. The reason why they're so desperate to suppress free speech around Palestine or around healthcare or around cop cities is that they know that there aren't enough pigs on the planet to stop a mass uprising. And I'm going to tell you this: a person, I won't mention any names, but a wealthy individual in California that donated to our campaign, big supporter of the California gubernatorial. I literally asked him, you're very well to do. Why are you so supportive of, this radical message? And he said to me, the elites never understand how close the people are to revolution when wealth inequalities reach the kind of scale that they are currently at. He said, the way that you talk sounds radical to some people, but if you understand how close the people are to revolution, then it is only this kind of political talk that will do. And I think that that's exactly where we are. I think that we are back where we were in the 1960s when the Huey P. Newtons and Bobby Seals of the world could go and talk to white working class communities, to Chicano communities, and start to get people lined up behind an agenda that would protect us all. And yeah, they killed off a generation of that leadership. You know, I pray and I stay strapped, and that's and
you have to. I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, quite honestly, and I've said this before, like the only reason that I am not personally out there killing people that have harmed people is I have too much to lose right now. But yet, if that were my kid and I had nothing left to lose, oh, I don't know. I honestly, that's why to me, it's like they are just playing with fire, and they are definitely in the find out portion.
They're in the find out portion of the program. But let me say something on this, is that I have everything to lose. I have a tenured position at the University of California, Santa Barbara. You can go look up my salary. I make a good salary. But you know what's more important to me than that salary? Going into the ground, having forwarded the cause of human liberation that my enslaved ancestors fought and died for. F our personal privileges if they must come at the expense of the basic dignity and humanity of our brothers and sisters, period. People have to understand that. Yeah. Them causing you to cling with your little sorry, selfish fingernails to the little piece of earth that you have for yourself is the thing that keeps the oppressive system afloat. And the reality is we have more than enough in order to provide for the basic needs of every single human being, way more than enough. It's just that this way of distributing goods, services, dignity, and humanity does not work. We have to get past this stage in human development. We have the capacity for abundance and prosperity. We do not have to live like this anymore.
Agreed. Status Quo News.
Thank you, Jordan. That's so sweet. I mean, it's just, yeah, that's very sweet.
And definitely, if you haven't had Mr. Ware on, you should definitely bring him on the podcast.
If there's anything that I can do for your campaign, being all the way over here, please keep me in the loop. I'll message Jason and just
there's plenty. There's plenty.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect subject to wind down the conversation on. So for those of you who have been paying attention, I know you have. Luigi Mangione is turning into somewhat of almost like a Dark Knight or even a Joker type. I mean, it is. It's like Butch. It's like a comic book come to life. Like it really is.
Even the name sounds made up. But go ahead. Yeah,
it does.
Yeah. You know, I always was Luigi in Super Mario 2 because he had.
Here we go again.
You know, that's bingo. And so on Saturday night, and this should come as no surprise because I will say that Mr. Colin Jost, who isn't that funny.
He really isn't. He really isn't that funny.
He's also married to Scarlett Zio-Nazi Johansson, for those of you who don't know that she is
so many things have been completely ruined for me now. Like I can't even watch anything.
If you want to talk.
Last year on the 23rd, Butch, and the past 2 years before that, we would have been celebrating Festivus. We had a Festivus. We had
airing of grievances. Yes.
Oh, we had it. We had guests come on. We aired grievances. I have a Festivus poll, the whole thing. We have Festivus sweaters. And now he's dead to me, and the whole thing is ruined and disgusting. So,
but what I want you to pay attention here is everybody's talking about the crowd reaction. I want you to pay attention to Colin's reaction.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Mangione dropped. Yeah, definitely woo. You're wooing for justice, right? Luigi Mangione dropped his extradition fight and was flown from Pennsylvania to New York to face multiple charges. In related news, Bumble exploded.
How much of a colossal douchebag could you possibly?
Well, he's just a tool of the establishment. Look what he works for. I mean, their ads are all from Pfizer. I mean, what do you think?
Also, just profoundly unfunny. I mean,
he's not funny.
Let's be clear about that.
What is funny is that his partner, Michael Shea, he's funny. So he gets a little lucky, just like being in the right place at the right time sometimes. But it's like, oh, we're cheering for him to like go away, right? We're cheering for him to get sent away to prison for a long time. Fuck. It's like they really don't get it. But
I think they do. I think that they do. I think that it's, one of my favorite MCs, Wise Intelligent from Poor Righteous Teachers. He came to my hip hop history class one time and he said, narrative scripts human behavior the way that code scripts computers, right? And why am I citing that? Because they are just trying to control the narrative. They're doing everything that they can, to get you to comply with the official version of events. When the reality is like people have responded the way that they've responded because the American public is over being exploited by a healthcare establishment that shouldn't exist at all. We should have single payer, just like every other, wealthy nation on earth. And you can literally track from the Reagan years how our spending has spiked and our life expectancy has gone down in comparison to every other similar place on earth. So we're getting the shaft, and the American people know it, and they're screaming for Luigi, Mangione, because they understand that these people are not afraid to kill us with the stroke of a pen.
That's exactly right. And that's what Bill Burr, a great thought leader, comedian. Bill Burr in many ways is our George Carlin. He's probably
come on, that's like almost sacrilegious.
No,
Nobody.
I'm saying
it's a little tall for him, but I mean,
yeah, I was gonna say Carlin was genius. I mean, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
Well, I think Chappelle is the best, but I do think that Burr is really good. That's my opinion. Okay. And so if you really want to know what the people are thinking, this is what counts. It's what's going on the outside, the opinions of people in the streets, not the people who are paid hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars on TV to say, get in line, behave, obey. Mm-hmm. If you haven't seen They Live by John Carpenter, see that movie.
I don't see scary movies, that.
It's not really scary.
I don't know. It doesn't sound like my kind of film. I'm gonna just go out and say that's not my film.
Okay, there's a scene there's a scene at the newspaper stand in that movie. That's like the scene of the film. It's with Roddy Piper. And I know you loved wrestling in the 80s, Jen. I know you loved Rowdy.
Roddy Piper. I actually did. I actually got to meet him once. So anyway.
So yes, watch that scene, if nothing else. And of course, people are not going to obey. They are going to rise up because that's what's happening. And here's what they had to say about Luigi.
He has fixated on and scolded Americans who express support for him, but they don't seem interested on covering the corruption and the greed of healthcare companies. What do you think of the media's response?
Yeah, I think they're missing the point. It's innocent until proven guilty. What does Luigi have to do with this? Focus on Brian Thompson. He's a criminal. Terrorism. That's absurd. That's absurd. Are any of the school shooters charged with terrorism? I don't think so. No, they're not.
My family or loved ones, they're dead basically. So it's just me. I wrote the sign because I'm going through it right now with the healthcare system. Back in June of 2021, I got into an electrical injury. I ended up with 4 herniated discs, 2 in my neck, 2 in my spine. In the amount of time it took for me to finally get my surgery, it took 2.5 years. So my nerves in my neck and my lumbar were both compressed the entire time, and now I have nerve damage for the rest of my life. I take a medication for it that they're telling me is no longer long-term, so they want me to move on to epidurals, like injections into the spine, and that costs about it's a couple $1,000s a pop. I don't have insurance. I haven't worked in 3 years, so I haven't been paid in about, since early 2022. Drained my 401k, drained all my portfolios, set up a GoFundMe back in the day, failed, so I'm just here to speak my piece.
You're lucky he's not carrying a piece.
And why does he have to suffer so much? Why do we all have to suffer so much? So that
because Brian Thompson paid $10 million a year,
so that they can sleep on a pile of money like Scrooge McDuck, right?
Exactly.
Literally, so that they can body surf, on their fortune, like a stereotypical, genie of the lamp. I mean, it's pure madness. I reposted an amazing TikTok, where with the most perfect deadpan delivery, this woman is like, if you're celebrating the unaliving of Brian Thompson, you're contributing to violence in this country. I mean, walking down, and then she said, I mean, in a school, fine. At a homeless shelter.
Oh yeah, no, she was great. That was great. That was so funny.
It was perfect because, like, at first you think that but no,
Yeah.
what she's pointing out is the sheer hypocrisy. Nobody has a damn thing to say about how cheap our lives are. But as soon as a wealthy, powerful CEO takes one in the back of the brain, then all of a sudden everybody is concerned about violence. The system is violence.
The people who are concerned about the violence are only concerned because it makes them uncomfortable, or because they realize that we are closer to revolution than we've probably been, I guess you would say, since perhaps how the country felt after Jack was assassinated. And a lot of things have transpired since then. I have always maintained that the system had failed and FDR saved the system. He didn't create a new one. He did good things for sure, but he saved it for basically a generation. And ever since Jack was assassinated, it's all been going downhill. It's been a death by 1,000 paper cuts. Reagan started it. Clinton took it to a whole other level, and Bush completely ruined it. And then Obama had an opportunity to fix it, and he made it even worse.
He made it even worse. And so there's one part that I think needs to be, a piece of our analysis, just thinking as a historian. And it came to me in trying to understand how Ronald Reagan in 1982 was able to make a call to Menachem Begin that Joe Biden can't make to Netanyahu, right? That Reagan calls Begin and calls what they're doing a Holocaust and ends the invasion of Lebanon, literally directly comparing it to the Nazi Holocaust of the Jews. And it didn't sit right with me because Reagan is as black-hearted a son of a bitch as has ever walked the face of the earth. It cannot be that he is a more moral person than Joe Biden. That's definitely not the case. They're both terrible human beings. So why can Reagan make that call and 40 years later, Biden can't make that call? And what I came to understand is that the basic issue is that Reagan was still capable of making his calculus on what he thought was in the best interest of the United States government. Whereas in 2024, what is in the best interest of the corporations prevails over the best interest of the government. It is not in the interest of the United States government to be supporting the Zionist entity in all of its settler colonial enterprises. It is only in the best interest of Raytheon, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, those other, warmongering companies, and it's in the best interest of those Congress members and so forth that have been bought and paid for by AIPAC. It is not in the interest of the United States government as an entity. And that led me to this really, really important conclusion, which is that those earlier revolutions were about reforming state structures. They were targeted at the state. We have to understand that today the empire is BlackRock, not the United States government.
Exactly.
That the entity against which we rebel and resist and organize. And Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture said, people usually mobilize around issues. Revolutionaries organize against systems. The system that we have to organize against is this corporate oligarchy, which is now more powerful than any state. Previously, states utilized corporations in order to effectuate the interests of the polity. Now that relationship has been reversed. Corporations utilize states in order to better extract resources and in order to generate wealth that is then distributed, and utilized internationally. So the empire against which we must fight is not just a political unit anymore. It's really a kind of corporate structure.
Couldn't have said it better. And one thing that I would definitely be emphasizing on the campaign trail is the one thing that I think RFK had talked about, which may have been the most important talking point out of any presidential candidate, with all due respect to anybody who was running. But this particular issue, the fact that private equity has completely sunk its teeth into every corner of our system. Yep. They are the end game behemoth of a broken capitalist / oligarchic fascist system that we are now sitting in. How do I know this? The three biggest shareholders in United Health are BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. The same private equity oligarchs that own and will own the lion's share of single-family homes in the United States within the next decade. And so if that is not the primary focus out of anybody who's running for office, then they don't give a flying fuck about this country and where it's heading. If I ran for office, I would be putting myself in harm's way because I would never stop talking about it. I'm probably putting myself in harm's way talking about it on a channel that's actually growing. And we are putting ourselves in harm's way because that is, when you think about what is the heart of the machine, that is the heart of the machine. It is pure, unadulterated corporate greed because the system has been set up to be that way. It has been accelerated over the last 2 generations. I don't think Clinton gets enough responsibility for what he did to rat fuck this country.
He does from us. He gets, we allocate plenty to him.
Oh, but when we still hear about the crocodile tears being cried for Hillary not getting her crown, never realizing just how much was done to completely destroy us. We do not recognize that, then I don't know where the hell we're going. If you think that you can just pretend like things are normal and that they're ever going to be normal again, they won't be. Anytime you end up in a situation, whether you're in Los Angeles or you are in Anaheim, and one of those big health conferences happens, there needs to be hundreds, if not thousands of people outside, literally with blood on their hands. You want to talk about the people in this country who should never have a moment's peace again as long as they live? People who literally are making their money off of the blood of people that are now dead and will be dead. Well, I have to tell you that I will definitely be okay. You don't have to worry about me. I'm always a little hot and heavy around the ladies, so you can forgive me for that happening.
So gross. It's even gross from afar.
I know, I'm sorry.
Butch, thank you so much for coming on and hanging with us and talking. I appreciate it so much. I hope to, talk to you again at some point. I find it always so interesting, and any way I can help.
Yeah, we'll be in touch. There's a lot of organization, building. I didn't even talk about the fact that, I'll mention it here. There'll be an official announcement coming in early January. But in order to help facilitate that coalition building, I'm starting a 501c4 that will allow us to have coordinated, so calling it race, revolutionary action and coordination of elections. So that we can have mutual aid, direct action, and political organizing that is bigger than any political party. If independents, Green Party, PSL, if you are down for the people's liberation, then we're down to work with you. So party work is part of it, but there's a movement that we all need to build. The media work is a part of it. So appreciate y'all doing more than your fair share.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Everybody, Butch's, all his links are in our description. So please check out and be following.
Make sure.
I look forward to watching this campaign. For
click the links in the description. Guys, this is going to be a very interesting campaign. I'm telling you, you're going to have a lot of people from the Bernie campaign, particularly in 2016, that are done with the two-party system that are going to be coming looking to help support your campaign. So
100%.
Here's to it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all.
Happy holidays, brother.
Bye.
I got you. Peace.
Bye-bye. So I think this is a first, I have to say. And to Joseph George, thank you very much.
That is so nice. Thank you. We've never had somebody do that before.
Colin, can you it shows you how much of novices we are when it comes to any type of monetary contributions to our
Thank you
channel.
so
Thank
much,
you,
Kip.
Kip. Appreciate it. Colin, can you explain exactly what these 10 Gen Change memberships are and how we can distribute? How does that work?
It's automatically distributed. So when they gifted those 10,
It
anyone
gets
who's in the
banked,
chat,
and when someone does it, they'll get it. They'll get a gift.
and if you're in the chat, you can check that at the, I forget if it's the top or bottom. It'll
Okay.
have a little toggle to make sure you can accept gift memberships
Okay,
as
cool.
well.
Thank you,
That's it.
Momo.
And thank you. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yes.
I would actually, I kind of, in a very sort of sick way, want to watch her run against him for governor and just watch him mop the floor with
No,
her.
honestly, in a way, I think it's probably the best thing that could happen to him, because I think people will it will continue to drive that wedge of, we're in charge, you get nothing, and you will accept that you will get nothing. And that will ultimately force people to say, all right, well, I'm going in another direction. And remember, California is a semi-open primary state. So you're not tied to the party the way that you are in states like New York and Florida.
Well, not just that, but in that system, it would come down to the two of them.
It most likely would. If he
And
had
that would be just so glorious to me.
listen, if the Muslim community put a few $1 million behind him and he was really ironclad in how that capital was being spent, I think he could surprise people. I do. I think that there's people that have had enough, and that he's going to have a lot of energy. And when he
as soon as he started talking about the Muslims and fundraising, I'm like, say no more, man. I've seen it live and in person. It's crazy.
No, he's definitely got it. Whatever it is in terms of political acumen, he's got it.
Revolutionary. He's friggin' awesome.
The last thing that I want to talk about before we go is, I think you guys should understand why there's so much fervent energy going on in the populist right now. And this idea that the Democratic Party all of a sudden is going to make this swing, like it's going to come back in their direction in the midterms. This is what just went on in Phoenix, Arizona over the weekend.
Aren't you glad that all these corporations and large companies are starting to see that DEI needs to DIE?
Obviously. This should be a truism. American citizens come first, right? We're Americans. We come first. This is America. Welcome to...
Unless
you sped it up. It's like you sped it up. Oh, my God.
Unless you're with the state of Israel. Am I right, Benny boy?
America, right? America first does not mean that America has no interests in the rest of the world. I can name off the interests America has in the rest of the world. We have an interest, for example, in seeing that Mexico doesn't ship a bunch of fentanyl up through our border. We have an interest in making sure that China doesn't take control of the trade routes through the Taiwan Strait, through which 92% of world shipping goes. We have an interest in ensuring that China doesn't ship the precursors for fentanyl over to Mexico. We have an interest in ensuring that Iran doesn't threaten American allies. We have an interest in all of those things. Now, that brings us to point 2. America's interests have to be carefully calibrated to our investments in them. Okay, that doesn't mean that every solution is the same. So, there are lots of bad things happening all over the world that
all I'm going to say,
I can't look at how long this clip is. You cannot make me watch more of these people.
I understand how people get sucked in with Shapiro. I can see.
I don't.
I fucking hate that guy.
I honestly, I'm like, I'm going to channel my.
Well, listen, I totally have something to say real quick. So believe me, you're going to want to hear it.
And you know what my older son, for anyone who doesn't know, like what he would say is that he wants to punch that guy in his vagina.
Well, listen, he totally has a vagina, but he gets me a lot of fundraising, so I appreciate him. That's all that matters.
There's foreign terrorist organizations. We're going to do it immediately.
You know, you've got your ideas. I've got my ideas. We can debate them. But I honestly don't think ever again in my lifetime will the richest people in the country be able to point a finger in your face and say, your position is too immoral to discuss, and if you keep talking, we're going to put you in jail. That has been their position.
I have a lot of disagreements with Tucker, but he really has a great podcast. If you haven't.
What position is it he's referring to that people are getting put in jail for?
Because
Because I'm not aware of what he's referring to.
Well, if he's talking about people that are going to ultimately be thrown in jail because they have a difference of opinion about whether or not we should have a for-profit health system, well, Tucker, the rubber's going to meet the road on that issue. Now, Tucker is truly libertarian. Again, as a Catholic, he has really been a apologetic individual, to say the least, about his encouragement for the war in Iraq. He has been dead set not only about the war in Ukraine, but also the genocide in Gaza. So I give him that much.
Yes, a broken clock is right twice a day. That's how it always feels with some of these guys. Like, yeah, okay, they could be right, but that doesn't mean like.
Now, here's the funny part. You even have people like Cenk Uygur trying to find another pathway to make money. Unbelievable.
When we disagree, we fight. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Now, rule number 2 is afterwards we must have a beer together, okay? And rule number 3 is, for God's sake, when we agree, let's unite.
But
I cannot stand this
young
douchebag.
men are the most conservative they have been in over 50 years. 50 years. Think about that. Now, a reporter asked me, they said, Charlie, can you try to explain this phenomenon? I said, yeah, it's very simple. Young men want to be part of a political movement that doesn't hate them. In fact,
and do not misread and do not underestimate how much that actually has played a factor.
I can't believe how long this clip is that you're making me watch these people. This is brain poison.
And drastically cut shipping times down to U.S. ports by days and even weeks. The United States is the #1 user of the Panama Canal, with over 72% of all transits heading to or from U.S. ports. Think of that. So we built it. We're the ones that use it.
His hair looks terrible.
Away. Considered one of the one of the great wonders of the world. The Panama Canal opened for business 110 years ago and was built at huge cost to the United States, and it really is big when you consider the lives and the treasure, the equivalent of $1.2 trillion today. You don't hear those numbers. 38,000 American men, almost all men, they went there to be construction workers and dig. They were diggers. And they were brave. 38,000 men died from infected mosquitoes in the jungles of Panama during the construction period. Think of that. We lost 38,000 men. Teddy Roosevelt was president of the United States at the time of its building and understood the strength of naval power and trade.
That's actually not true, Donnie.
Oh, really? You don't think that Donald Trump is giving you an accurate rendition of historical facts?
Well, not only is he not giving an accurate rendition, but he did say that the Panama Canal was built during Teddy's presidency. In actuality, Teddy Roosevelt is responsible for the Panama Canal, but the completion of the Panama Canal did not happen until Woodrow Wilson's presidency. So, if you're going to make a statement, at least be somewhat accurate. There is nothing wrong with calling him out, but of course I never say anything wrong. I'm totally right about everything. And America is going to be great again in 24 and 25.
Oh my God, it's just horrible. It's just horrible.
The reason I played that clip is for this reason.
Because it was pretty brutal for me. And no, I love when people put in the comments about how I can't handle people that have different opinions, or I don't want to hear people disagree with me. That's not why I don't like those kinds of things.
What you have to remember, guys, is that the thing about Turning Point USA is that this is MSNBC and CNN on steroids. This is a completely corporate-funded organization. Completely. Yeah. I went to the Turning Point USA event in Tampa. I saw firsthand how this shit operates.
It's also a very strong commingling of religion in politics, which I am very opposed to. There's a lot of variables about groups like that are just a real turnoff to me. But it isn't that we just don't agree on policy. Like, that's not. there's many people that I don't agree with on policy, but wouldn't be like, oh, I can't watch that. Like,
no, but there are
those things like that with Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro. Those are spectacles.
They are.
Yeah.
And there are people that are on the political right that I share agreements with. I even like listening to. I personally like Tucker Carlson. I personally despise Ben Shapiro. And I listen to Trump because he's a carnival act. That's what he is. And yes, he is our president. And there is nobody, as Jen has said time and again, that better represents the current state of affairs in this country better than him.
I stand by that. He is the absolute representation of what we are in the world and how the world perceives us, because most of the world perceives us like just bullies that they're either scared of or they just think that we're morons. And by us, I don't mean the people. That's something that most of the world actually does infinitely better than us, is most people in the world are able to distinguish Americans from American empire. And I have found that to be fairly consistent. So you'll meet people in places where they do not like American empire, but they will be very kind and welcoming to Americans. So, and I've found that in lots of places.
And I will also say that while I do believe that Cenk falls under this category with a lot of other people, Cenk is actually somebody who does walk to the beat of his own drum. Now, granted, he's walking to the beat of wherever he can find the money, which is something that is very common amongst the independent media crowd. However, he is one of the rare exceptions that is in that crowd that still actually has principles regarding the corporate filth in the party. And that's why he gave Jen a platform against Debbie Wasserman Schultz both times.
Yeah, no, Cenk was good to me. And you know what? It's not, there's definitely things he's done that I've seen that are public things that other people have, that I haven't liked or whatever, but I don't have a problem with him.
No. And I think that that's where people have to really draw the line. Now, do I think that Cenk is simply chasing the dollars? Yes. There's no question that that's what he's doing. But guess what? That's just about what everybody else does. The only channel that we promote is Status Quo, not because Jordan donates to the channel and wants.
Well, but that's also different but that's different because Jordan it's actual journalism, right? Like that's different. To me, when I think of Status Quo, that's like how I think of, like Gray Zone or Ben Norton's channel, like the shows that I watch for international news, like that's more like that. Whereas Cenk, those are talking heads. I mean, yes, Jordan also does do the talking head thing, but I mean, to me, it's different. It's apples and oranges.
I agree. And for those of you out there who are celebrating tomorrow, as I will be, we want to send our very best. I got you a little something, Jen. Of course, it's probably something you wouldn't expect.
Your camera came. Who was it who sent the camera to you? I didn't look. Chip, we got it. It's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Chip.
Yeah, I told Jason was curious, so he wanted to open it.
You guys are all going to have a nice post-Christmas present on Thursday, the 26th. We will be speaking with one of your favorites, our favorites. Steve Grumbine of Real Progressives will be here, and we are going to be talking about this new documentary that Stephanie Kelton is, I guess you would say, the star of, called Finding the Money. We will cut it down to probably about 10 minutes to really give you guys an idea of how modern monetary theory actually works. You don't have to agree with it, but it is what it is. It's actually how money gets spent into the economy. It's how they decide, oh, you want $100 billion for Ukraine? You want $100 billion for Israel? Here it is. Here's how we do it. Oh, yeah, and you're going to pay for it too. It's not that the taxpayers pay for this. It's that the government prints it, and then the taxpayers are responsible on the back end. That's how it works. It's not the front way. It's the back way, understanding that and understanding who should be getting the money when the money is spent into the economy. That's the key.
Okay, so we're having Steve on Thursday, and are we going at the early bird hour to accommodate Mr. Grumbine, or what's our plan?
Seinfeld's too good for the early bird.
The whole solstice was like, I mean, I am a solstice person, so like that's more my bag. But yeah, Festivus is now dead to me. It's sad.
It is. Well, we're gonna have to find another way. What can we say?
We'll have to figure out another sort of I mean, look, we still have to work on having like a better intro. Or where are you, by the way?
I am in Delray Beach. I am at the Hampton Inn. I'm living it up.
No, I know you're in a hotel, but you're in Delray. Okay.
Yes.
I thought you were driving, and then I got the text from you that you were at the airport in Charlotte, and I'm like, what is going on?
Well, I had to connect. I couldn't take it.
Well, yes, because you live in BFE.
I don't know what that means, but
am I the only guys? Do you guys know what BFE is? If I say
something.
No, if I know what. It just seems to me like a very Gen X thing. I want to see if anybody knows what BFE is when I say someone lives there.
Well, that's
but that's close. It's but F Egypt. Don't know why Egypt got thrown in there. No idea. I think just it was a far thing, but it was BFE. It was BF Egypt was where you were if you were in the middle of nowhere. Again, I don't know why.
Hey, listen, we got our viewership up to about 115 tonight, and that was without the tailwinds of status quo. So we'll credit Butch for at least 30 or 40 of those viewers, I would say.
Oh, I'm sure. But that's great. I don't care. If you guys, if you're new here, I'm Jen. This is Peter. I realize that people could come on in the middle and be like, who are these people?
Yeah.
Who are these people? If you are new, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Right. It's free. We have been doing this for over 4 years now. We have a lot of content. We talk to very interesting people. We cover, I think, fairly interesting things. If it was up to Peter, there would be a lot more drama probably. But
I try to
keep it. He now has his own show.
Yes, but not all the time. I try to keep it to a minimum.
For his drama.
As long as it's real. Hey, listen, we addressed some of it tonight, but I think it was all very relevant to the topics at hand.
Yeah.
That's good to hear, Kimmy.
I'm glad to hear it. But yeah, if you're new here and if you guys like what we're doing and you would be interested in supporting us, we also do have a Patreon. And it's very appreciated and it really helps. I mean, we are fortunate enough that somebody who we knew as a producer person kind of has taken pity on us and has been helping us so much. And Colin is the best. So, but that is sort of like happenstance. Like we got kind of really lucky, just that. But I do like to compensate the people, but it's like, it's a labor of love.
It is. We're transforming politics into service. That is our mission. And right now, there is nobody who is transforming politics into service better than Luigi Mangione, whether he knew what was going to happen or not. One thing, no matter what happens to Luigi, cannot be disputed. People are never going to look at our for-profit health system the same ever again. The question now is, what's it going to take to push it to a single payer?
Well, I think the big difference is now the people that are looking at it differently are the elitists and the CEO class. They're the ones who are seeing things differently. The rest of us have been seeing it this way the whole time. The problem, I saw somebody in the chat a while ago. I'm not sure which one. It was somebody saying that they didn't think that he would be able to get a fair trial in New York, which is interesting because I don't see how they're going to find 12 people that are going to convict him. I just don't.
I don't either.
And that's the problem, which is why they're throwing everything at him, because they have to aim high because that shit's going to get whittled down. The bigger concern is that he's not making it to a trial. That's my concern. I don't see how this can actually go to trial and turn out in a way that's going to satisfy the oligarchs. So that's the problem. I mean, that to me is what I don't see how this can go to trial and not be a circus that embarrasses the oligarchs. I think that they'll not get it. And the fact that they're charging him as a terrorist is absurd, and everyone knows it's absurd. And why not just put a big sign, all of you, that says that oligarchs are a protected class now? Why don't you have them be a protected class?
The fact that you have how about the pretrial judge being married to a top executive in the for-profit health system? It's like you said, it's kind of like if you were fighting Wasserman Schultz on an even playing field.
There is no such thing as an even playing field.
What I'm saying is that if you had an equal opportunity, if you had a fair puncher's chance at knocking her off, you said time and again, she'll just hang herself. Much like the oligarchy is going to hang themselves because they
Just
don't
like
know.
Israel is burying itself.
They don't know what to do. Again, this is like, it's like the Wizard of Oz. Once you see behind the curtain, you're not going to all of a sudden be scared of the big giant projection. It's like, oh no, he's right over there. He's just that regular person. And much like this broken system, everyone who is getting solicited ad nauseum by the for-profit health system, as they always do at the end of every fiscal year, you better believe that there's a lot of them that are picking up the phone and telling them to fuck off, or a lot of them are just saying, you know what, I'm just not going to pay anymore. I'm just not doing this. It's not worth it. That's happening. If anything, I would hedge bets against the for-profit health system going into next year. I would do that. Why not? People are not going to just, I know, Joe, I know.
We know. Yeah, it's true. It works exactly how it's intended to work is the point. The question is how much longer they've done a really good job hiding it. They can't hide it so much anymore. More people see it and are not tolerating it. And they should be worried about copycats. Honestly, I've said for a long time, I'm surprised there's not more shootings all the time. Like with the amount of firearms in this country. And by the way, I am not a firearm owner, so I am not one of those numbers. But with all the firearms in this country, how in the world would anybody be surprised at the level of violence? Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me that anybody would be remotely surprised by that.
You know, the irony of a person who has spent the better part of her career preventing single-payer healthcare decided to get her hip replacement in one of the best countries in the world for healthcare.
Well, okay, but now in all reality, that is where she is. I don't know that she necessarily would have gone there to have that, but yeah.
Just don't worry about it.
She's disgusting. She's disgusting. They're all disgusting. Like, honestly, I'm looking forward to the revolution. I've been looking forward to it for most of my adult life. I think it is very necessary. And people can sit there and say whatever they want about Luigi Mangione and what he did. But at the end of the day, what they're doing is violent. And once you recognize that what they're doing is violent, then you recognize what somebody like what Luigi is doing is self-defense and defense of others. Because it's really just a matter of what you perceive as violence. And I would suggest that Brian Thompson has killed so many people and has been responsible for the death of so many people that if it were with his actual hands, you'd be calling Luigi Mangione a hero. So that's the difference. It's what you perceive as what is violent and what is self-defense. That's the difference.
And not only that, but what you also have to remember about the bounties and what this actually means is simply this. You cannot build your moats wide enough. You cannot build your walls high enough. When the people have decided that they've had enough, as Thomas Jefferson, perhaps the most prolific thing that he said outside of writing the Declaration was, when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. And
that could be true too.
Mm-hmm. That may be true.
That's what I'm saying. That the fall was staged, but you wouldn't think they would want to stage something to make her look more frail and weak when they already are dealing with constant criticism about these people that they're, look like crypt keepers and keep running for office.
Well, that is in itself, I think, one of the bigger factors when it comes to why Jerry Connolly won the position over AOC. Now, granted, we both feel that AOC is in over her head in terms of being a federal legislator. However, there is no question that there is this old guard within the party. What makes Wasserman Schultz particularly egregious is the fact that she is part of the old guard and she's not even that old. That's the scary part. But there are people that have been at it forever. You know that Maxine Waters is 86?
I know.
So not a surprise.
We should do a list of the Congress people by age. I'm sure you could find some sort of like spreadsheet of them by age.
Sure.
And if you were to draw a line across at like past the 65 mark and see what that percentage is, I think it would be kind of a little much.
I think the average age of a congressional member is like 67 or something.
So the point is, I think in regards to Congress, maybe we should consider forced retirement.
Well, you know, one of the
Yeah,
few
forced retirement.
One of the few decent Democrats that are out there is Ro Khanna, and he's been pushing for term limits for a long time. And he's going to continue pushing for it because, unfortunately, he's on an island. And very few of them are going to do what they actually are preaching. AOC is going to sit in Congress for 30 years. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I saw somebody also in the chat before ask why AIPAC, or point out that AIPAC didn't go after AOC. They tried that once. It just isn't worth it for them. It just isn't worth it for them. They can't. It's just too. It's too. They can't. She already proved that that's not happening.
Indeed. Well, for those of you who are celebrating, have a Merry Christmas.
Happy Hanukkah.
Happy Hanukkah. Hanukkah actually starts on Thursday.
I know.
So I guess we'll have to do some type of a Hanukkah.
However, I wouldn't be averse to playing any portion of the Adam Sandler Hanukkah song in some capacity.
Put on your yarmulke.
That is absolutely my favorite holiday song. Is Adam?
It's a
Sandler.
great song. It's a great
my
song.
Favorite song.
O.J. Simpson.
Not a Jew.
That we know. That we know. But if he, you know, met if he met the right Peggy Lipton, if you catch my drift, then you never know. He might have converted. Might have been that guy. But with that said, we appreciate you all. We love you all. You guys have been great. The chat has been very lively, and we are extremely appreciative of everything that you do to support our channel. We will continue speaking truth to power. Merry Christmas. We'll see you Thursday.